at least you can imagine eventually getting comfortable probably with this syntax once you learn the rules and the syntax and so forth. But we need to convert it somehow to zeros and ones, and how to do that is perhaps non-obvious. So it turns out if we want to convert code like this to zeros and ones that the computer understands, there needs to be some intermediate step. I actually need, on my Mac or PC or this cloud-based environment, a program that is going to take as input my source code, which is that language called C, and is going to produce as output what's called machine code. So source code is something like C, or Python, or Java, or C++, and maybe other languages you've heard about. It's English-like syntax in which you write programs. Machine code is the zeros and ones that every computer actually understands. So to get from source code to machine code, there needs to be some kind of algorithm, or more specifically, a piece of software that does that conversion, and that piece of software is what we're going to start calling a compiler. So we're going to write code, literally by just typing commands at a keyboard. We're going to save those commands in a file, just like you saved your code in Scratch, but before I can run my program and do the equivalent of double-clicking on it, I need to run it through a compiler and produce output, which is zeros and ones. So how do I go about doing that? This is the first of the more esoteric commands, but it turns out it's relatively straightforward to do. At the top of my programming environment, again, I have my code here at top left, and if I scroll down to the bottom, I have this, again, so-called terminal window. And the dollar sign is just a weird human convention. The dollar sign just means type something here. That's your so-called prompt, or your shell. But the blinking cursor is just inviting me to type a command at this prompt. The first command I'm going to type is what's called Clang for C language. Clang is the name of a program that exists to compile code. Someone else wrote this, someone else online built this program called Clang, a whole group of people, in fact, made it freely available for me and you to download onto your own Macs or PCs or this sandbox environment, and we can use Clang to convert source code to machine code. So I'm gonna go ahead and run Clang hello.c. I've not hit enter yet, but the moment I hit enter, we're going to see something happen. Let me go up to this little folder icon up here, and you can actually see all of the files in my current sandbox, so to speak, my programming environment. There's, of course, only one, because the only file I've created thus far is called hello.c. But notice what happens the moment I hit enter after having typed out Clang hello.c. So clearly something else exists now, and it's a really stupid name and very cryptic. It's a.out. But you can perhaps guess what's inside of that new file. What might be inside of it? Yeah, machine code. So it stands for assembly output, but that just means machine code. So inside of this file are a whole bunch of zeros and ones that correspond to this code, but in binary, in the language the computer can understand. So literally what I just did was this. I took as input code that looks like this, written in C.
Don't worry.
I ran it as input.
Don't worry. I will get it.
Into the compiler and produced as output zeros and ones, and those zeros and ones